That's the American balance. In Israel, we chose not to have a serious political influence on the process of electing judges. So suddenly, we have a dual situation. On the one hand, the Supreme Court took the right to overrule Knesset legislation, but the Knesset itself feels crippled in its ability to influence the structure of the Supreme Court and who sits in the Supreme Court. The entire mechanism of balancing the relations between the authorities is not clear today in Israel, because on the one hand, we have a very good and professional constitutional court, but it is weak. Why it is weak? Because with an ordinary majority in the parliament can take from the court its constitutional authorities, right? It gave it to him in a basic law, 26 verses 19. He can take it. At the same time, the Knesset is very weak in its ability to influence the views of the Israeli Constitutional Supreme Court, because they don't get to elect the Supreme Court judges. There is no even a public hearing to those people in order to prevent political influence on the juridical system. Okay? And I would like to suggest that in many ways, one of the secret tensions of the Israeli society, in a minute I will explain why it's secret, is the issue of how you deal with the constitutional status of the Supreme Court, and how do you deal with the ongoing attempts of the more conservative forces in the Israeli parliament either to take away the constitutional status of the Supreme Court, or to make sure that the Knesset is the one that decides who sits on the bench in the Supreme Court. Why I'm saying it's a secret? Because usually when we talk, even with Israelis, about the major issues of the Israeli political system, we talk about Iran, we talk about the social protest, we talk about religion and state. But there is a very serious, profound debate and even a battle in the Israeli political system, and many of the borderlines today in the Israeli Knesset are placed alongside to this debate. Do we have a constitutional law? Do we have a Bill of Rights? What does it include? And this is a major political issue in Israel. I have 3 more minutes, okay? We will not have enough time to explore the entire issue. I said to you, you'll leave the room with more questions. But in the few minutes we have, I will try to show you that it's not only an issue of political governing mechanism, that there are some fundamental questions that the Israeli society is dealing with that are today translated into this constitutional debate. Go back to what we said about the 3 parts of the Constitution: the narrative part, the Bill of Rights, and the governance mechanism. A few years ago, the Knesset, and I was deeply involved in this process, tried to legislate a full constitution as a breakthrough from the dead-end situation that we experience today in our constitutional law. Why it is a dead end? In the last 20 years, the Knesset did nothing with its basic law because all sides are afraid to touch this fragile system. Okay? So there was a process of 3-4 years of trying to write a constitution. We failed. Why we failed? When we came to deal with the basic narratives of the state of Israel, immediately we met a serious debate between the Jewish majority and the Arab minority. The Jewish majority demanded that we will define the country as a Jewish state with a democratic regime. The Arabs said, friends, forget about it. You can't have a Jewish state and a democracy. what it means in regard to our stand as citizens. If you're saying this is a Jewish state, you automatically say, I'm a second class citizens. We have good answers to reply. This is not the topic of our session, but when we ask them, well, Israel is defined a Jewish state from day one. How come now you're saying that this is something so terrible? So first they said, we said it to you from 48, you didn't want to hear. Okay? We never thought that for an Arab to live in a Jewish state, it's a reasonable situation. This is our homeland. But second, they said something much more important. There is a difference when you define the country as a Jewish state in the Declaration of Independence. It's clear that in the Declaration of Independence, it was declared among Jews. Okay? It's clear that it's a Jewish declaration. Okay? It's okay that here and there in the legislation, you present the concept of a Jewish state, for example, in the law of return. But when you go to legislate a constitution, the most superior piece of legislation, which is very hard, by definition, it's hard to change it. We are not willing to allow you to give a constitutional standing to this concept. Now, the majority can ignore what the minority wants, but enough players among the majority ask themselves, do we really want now a serious crisis between the Jewish majority and the Arab minority more than we already have? Is this the right time to open the question, how do you find the country? There are a lot of Zionist forces, including myself, and in a way my movement, that think that Israel should be defined as a Jewish state, in which this is the place that the Jewish people celebrates it or implement its rights for self-determination, but at the same time, the constitution must say that this is the state of all its citizens. Because how can you have a democracy if not all citizens are shareholders in your country? There is a huge debate in the Jewish community about the term state of all its citizens. So this is one example of the narrative. When you come to the Bill of Rights, usually you think that in a democracy, writing a Bill of Rights is a simple thing. Which basic right does not appear in the basic law of human dignity and liberty?
Right to vote.
Right to?
Vote.
No, all Israeli citizens vote. Look at the wording, dignity and liberty. What is missing? Freedom is there. Freedom of religion is one thing that's missing, but something much more basic in constitutional democratic world. Equality. Friends, in the Bill of Rights of the State of Israel, you don't have the word equality as a basic right. Huh?
Sorry, we need to cancel, otherwise it'll log you off.
Okay? It's a good reminder that we need to stop in a minute. Friends, in the Israeli Bill of Rights, it took us 40 years to have a Bill of Rights. The most important word in democracies that can be found in Bills of Rights is the concept of equality. All citizens are equal in front of the law. So that's the basic right after to live. Okay? In Israel, the right for equality does not appear in the Bill of Rights. Why it does not appear? First, we mentioned the tension between Arabs and Jews, but also, where do you find the serious breach of equality in the Israeli law? The Orthodox monopoly. If it's equality, how you can defend the idea that a couple can get married through an Orthodox service but not through a progressive service? How come an Orthodox rabbi is being paid by the government and a progressive rabbi is not being paid by the government? How come some religious denominations, even among the Christian denominations, gain governmental recognitions and other denominations do not get governmental recognition? And in order to have a Bill of Rights, there was a compromise between the liberal side of the parliament and the conservative side of the Knesset, and the word equality was taken away from the Israeli Bill of Rights. Can you imagine legislating a constitution without the word equality? Not only that, in this basic law, it is said that all laws that were legislated before 1992 can stand forever. That the basic law cannot be implemented in order to allow the court to overrule legislation before 92. So when you're debating the ability to integrate the word equality into your constitution, people find it hard to move forward with your constitution. And the last thing, and we'll conclude with it, is when we move to the third part of the constitution, the democratic mechanism. Here again, we can agree about the system of election, the system of government. What we cannot agree is how to balance the powers between the parliament and the Israeli Supreme Court. The parliament is saying to the Supreme Court, okay, you want to overrule our legislation? We want to elect the Chief Justice, the Chief Justices. The Israeli Supreme Court say, well, in Israel, if you are electing the Chief Justices, we can throw away the entire constitutional work. So actually today Israel is in a situation that we have the seeds of a constitutional issue, law. It is also a constitutional crisis. It's not only about the relations between the parliament and the Supreme Court in Israel. The constitutional crisis touches all the serious internal issues of our society, Jews and Arabs, Orthodox monopoly, non-Orthodox majority, and also the tension between the different branches of government. And Israel today is stuck in a constitutional situation that is not to this side and not to this side. And the constitutional debate observe all the big tensions of the Israeli society. Of course, we didn't reach the third and the fourth part. I apologize, but when you read Israeli press, Anglo-Israeli press, or Jewish press, do not skip the reports over the Israeli Supreme Court. All the big issues of Israel can be found today in this constitutional debate between the different branches of government. Friends, thank you.